Okay. Section 3. Today, it's Venezuela and the Guianas, but we're not going to get to the Guianas today. So we're going to kind of take 2 days over this section. All right. Venezuela, you will see, is very, very similar to Colombia and the rest of the countries so far that we've been studying. Okay, you'll notice from the natives there that were there to the history, the culture, what it's like today, it's quite similar. All right. Yes.
Where Columbus first settled, were the native people there called the Taínos?
I don't know. Maybe.
I couldn't remember.
He called them Indians because he thought he was in India. West Indies. Okay. So, we're talking Venezuela, which is right here. All right? And who came over and who conquered those natives and settled here? Spain. And Spain is right here.
I have a question.
Yes?
Would you want to go to Venezuela?
I don't care. Maybe.
Is it like bad?
Not now. Not today. Not today as much. It was, but not as much. You wouldn't want to go to Colombia.
Would it be safer than going to Iraq?
Yeah. Okay, so you've got Spain. Here goes your little boat floating over, and the Spanish people, and they arrive in Venezuela, along with a lot of the other places that in the Caribbean and Colombia and all those. So it's not like they just said, okay, this year we're going to Colombia, this year we're going to Venezuela. It's all the same time period, okay? So when they came over here, they started to, well, the first thing they did was they conquered those poor natives, that's their land. And then they started to, form settlements, and all of Venezuela became the colony. Okay, and what is a colony, Chayton?
It's like a little town. Well, not necessarily little, because they can be big, but it's a city set up by another country to collect, for people to live in the New World. And we're gonna,
Okay.
they send resources back.
Okay. Yeah, except for it's not a city. It's a big area of land. It could be a big area of land. It's not just a city. Because you got the 13 colonies, and so it is area of land that's governed by another country. Okay, so Venezuela, the colony, governed by Spain. And the Spanish came over here. Now, back then in 1500s, you don't just say, hey, let's go jump on a boat and head over to this new land. It's a big deal. And why did they want to come over here? What was it that they thought they were going to become rich because this is here? Brandon?
They thought gold would be there?
They were looking for a lot of treasures, especially gold, pearls. They were looking for the same thing in Colombia as well. And so they get there, they conquer those natives, and what do they make the natives do when they're there? Because they didn't kill them all, they wouldn't want to do that. What did they force the poor natives to do? Combs? And they made them slaves, and they made them start looking for gold and working in their mines. But after a little bit of time, what did they find out about gold? Cheating?
It's not there.
It really wasn't there. There wasn't not enough to survive or boost their economy or anything. It was almost like a worthless trip, if that's what they were looking for. So, since they're there, you can't just say, well, let's go back, because it takes 3 to 4 months to get in a boat and go back, and most likely you might die of disease and you don't have enough food to get there. So they had to do something. And so what did they do since gold wasn't an option anymore, Brandon?
They grew
indigo. They turned to farming, and they grew different crops, and one of the crops they grew was indigo. And does anyone know what indigo is? Laura?
It's like a tint.
A tint. What color of a tint?
Purplish blue.
Purplish blue, like a bluish tint. It's a plant, and it's used to make, the colors of blue and stuff, like in your blue jeans. Indigo. Okay? They still use it today. So it's a plant.
Did Sir Francis Drake have to do any of this?
Well, yeah, but he wouldn't have been a Spanish person, but he was around heading over in those areas. But not probably Venezuela. Okay, so after a while, these poor natives that were working in the gold mines, farming in the fields, poor guys died. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so the Spanish, well, they ran out of workers. And they obviously didn't want to do it themselves, so then what did they do to make sure that they could get some workers? They needed some workers, Colton. They didn't move, because that really wasn't as much of an option either. It was an option, but they wanted to stay there because the more land you had, the more powerful you were. Sammy? They brought Africans over, and they enslaved the Africans and forced them to be their workers now. Okay. Well, after a while, at the beginning, as their colony was growing, they kind of were working in this coastal area. Okay. But after a while, some of the slaves were able to escape, and they worked their way inland and started hiding in these different remote areas to hide because they were, slaves and they didn't want to be slaves. So after a while, some of them left, but they stayed, and that's why you got some African heritage in Venezuela still, because they stayed. They didn't have any way to leave. Okay, like the Spanish had a little bit of an option to jump on a boat and head home. The Africans, they couldn't, because if they went back, they would be slaves again. There's no slavery there today, though.
So say like Britain wanted to come in there and like invade Venezuela and like take it over, whatever. How quickly could Spain find out about it and then send troops there? Like,
well, it would take a little bit of time. That's why they would have troops there already. And like when we talked about Cartagena, which was in Colombia, they built that fort so you could look out and see ships coming. So if you see the ships coming, you can prepare yourself there. But you can't get on the phone and say, send some troops. And you can't say, jump on the boat and head home, because if you jump on the boat and head home, who are you going to run into? The other boats. So that's why they had people there and stationed. That's why they would have troops there. So it wouldn't be a quick process. And even as you see them coming, you can prepare and everything, but they're coming. So they did fight a lot, the British and the Spanish, too, back during this time period. Okay, so after that, after a while of the Spanish, they settled a lot of places, colonized a lot of new areas, especially along the coast, living their life for a while. It's not the best area. It's not very rich. It's kind of poor. What would be the next step in history for that area, that country, Sammy? Independence would come next. Okay, after a while of seeing other countries starting to do it and just not enjoying the fact of being poor and run by another country, they decided they wanted to revolt. Well, what's a revolt? Burley?
You go against your leader or ruler?
Yeah, kind of like an uprising. When you're revolting, you're rebelling against your ruler. They wanted to rebel, revolt, uprise against the Spanish so that they could become a free country. All right? So there was this man who kind of helped lead this fight. Who was it? Ryan?
Simon Bolivar?
Yeah, and Simón Bolivar. And if you look at that name, and thinking of the countries that we have already, no, we haven't studied this one, but thinking of some of the countries in South America, do you think there's been a country named after this guy? Yes.
Bolivia.
Hey.
I read the thing.
You read it already?
It
Good
said
boy.
He also helped free Bolivia.
Nice job. Simón Bolivar, he helped lead this fight against Spain. He's considered a huge hero down in all of South America. If you look at the biography, like Brandon did, it says that he's known as the George Washington of South America. Bolivar was a revolutionary general. In the early 1800s, he led a liberation of several South American countries from Spanish rule. Beginning in 1811, he helped free his native Venezuela. Then he became president of Gran Colombia, which was present-day Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, and Ecuador all together, just Gran Colombia. He was then president of Peru. Because Bolivar also helped free Bolivia, the country was named in his honor. People across South America admire Bolivar for his determination in achieving independence for former Spanish colonies, and today, in both Venezuela and Bolivia, they celebrate his birthday. It's a national holiday.
Does anybody know what Bolivia was named before they named it after Bolivar?
Probably somebody does. Let's look.
I'm just gonna take a guess here and say it's a Spanish name.
You think?
Yep.
We're studying that in 8th grade. I don't even know if that's the name of the American type. If I can't find it quick, I'm gonna make you look it up tonight and come back and tell us tomorrow.
I always just type in the question.
Do you?
Yeah, I always type in, what was Bolivia called before it was Bolivia?
But you're not supposed to type as much stuff because you get less stuff on there, though, I thought.
No,
But
but usually the first or second one always gives me
Really?
the answer I want though.
Alright.
If I'm specific like that.
Let's see that. Go to Cha-Cha.
Bolivia Called before it was
Cha-Cha.
Bolivia.
Alright, let's see if we get it. I don't like going in and reading. I literally know that. Who's voting in next? We know that.
Well, it didn't work that time, but it
All right.
works a lot.
It does. I've done that too. Chase your job tonight. Giddy up. That's a good question. If you can find it.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
All right. So he's like George Washington. George Washington was a hero in the Revolutionary War. If you want to go to lunch right now, we can't. Let's just take a moment of silence for this, our old lunchtime. Okay, now we have to wait. How sad. I'm hungry.
So
My
what time do you go?
12:20.
12?
Yes. But at least we don't have split lunch. That's good. Okay.
Split lunch is definitely better.
I disagree. Okay, back here. George Washington, hero of the Revolutionary War, helped gain our independence from Britain. Simon Bolivar, same thing, just down in the south. When was it that Spain they got their independence from Spain? Brandon?
1830.
Good. I have 1821 because they gained their independence in 1821, but I'm going to also write 1830 because that's when they officially became independent, probably recognized by Spain, them stopping trying to control them. And so sometimes when you declare independence and gaining your independence, those are all kind of separate. There's a difference. So they celebrate their Independence Day. They celebrate Bolivar's birthday. Big parades and parties and things like that. So now, since their independence, probably the rest of the 1800s, what was it like there for them? What was life like in Venezuela? What would you say it's like there?
Before or after?
After independence. Since independence. Like in the rest of the 1800s. Not most recently. Ethan? We're on 91 in the book. The other 91. Lexi, what you got? What do you think it's been like there?
It had like civil wars and dictatorships and stuff.
Yeah. Dictatorships, civil wars. What's dictatorships? What's that? Jane?
When a single person has complete power over the government and the people.
Mm-hmm. Good. And then civil wars would be what? Melanie? Within the country. Good. So, at times they were even run by their military, and the country was really poor. And in the early 1900s, they discovered oil, which you would think, okay, this is going to be great for our economy. But it wasn't, because what did the leaders of the country do with the money from the oil? Alexis? Kept it for themselves. They did not use it to help the country prosper. The rest of the people did not get the benefit whatsoever. And that's why we don't like living in a dictatorship. Because they just kept it just for themselves. They did not benefit the country. Even if you worked in those oil fields or things like that, nothing. Okay? So dictatorship, civil wars. We're going to come back later and talk about how this changed and what it's like today. But right now what we're going to do is talk about people and culture. I want you to make a chart, the T chart. People on one side, culture on the other side.
Doesn't he do your pretty name?
What?
Does it have to be big?
No, mine's just big because I don't have a pencil. So you probably have to fit like 4 things maybe on each side. So 4 lines deep, I would say. You know what I mean?
I got like 10.
10, 4. Maybe you're right, big. So take a look on 91 where it talks about people and culture. What I want you to do is write down on the people side, I want you to jot down where many of the people of Venezuela descend from. And then on the culture side, I want you to write things about their culture. And that would include things like their language, their religion, music, sports, anything you can find out about culture, okay? Try to come up with about 4 things for each one, okay? I'll give you a little bit of time and then we'll come back and talk. People. The people of Venezuela descended from a lot of different places. Now, when we come back tomorrow and talk about the Guianas, you will notice a difference. What a big difference. Melanie, give me one.
Indian?
Yep, you've got the native. Okay, and when they talked about the native, they gave a percentage of people in Venezuela that are probably of the native descent. And what percentage would that be, Dawson?
10.
Not 10. 2%. So every 2 out of 10 people would be maybe native descent, not specific. Even
European.
what?
European.
Yes. European. Okay, remember Europe is a continent. So people from Spain, England, any of those European countries, but mostly Spain, probably. Laura?
Next to Indian and European.
Yes, now this is, alright, majority. I'm just going to put E and N because that helps me. If you can't remember it, you might want to write out European and Native. This is the majority of people are of the mixed European heritage, European and Native heritage together. Okay, because the Europeans, the Spanish came over, settled, there were natives there, boom. You have a new group of people. Yes. Africans. The Africans were over there as slaves. They didn't leave. They moved inside, and now you have people of African descent there. Good. Let's talk about culture. Let's start first with language, because that's part of culture. And so what's the major language spoken here, Brandon? Spanish. Spanish. They brought it over. That's the language. Laura?
Rodeos.
Language.
Oh.
What other type of language you spoke there, Chayton?
Like, several different native languages.
Several different native languages, specifically about 25 different native languages. Probably very similar. Keep your eyes in here. Probably very similar, just different types of dialect, but 25 different. If you're a native descent, you're going to be speaking that. Religion. Ethan.
Roman Catholic.
Yep. Now, it didn't say in the book, but I imagine there's some native religions there. Maybe even kind of a Catholic and native blend, even, together. I talked about some sports. What sports did you find, Hannah?
Baseball.
Baseball, what else? Sammy?
Soccer.
Soccer. And Melanie. Well, that's not sports. We'll come back to that. Alexis?
Rodeo.
They do some rodeos. They even have some baseball guys from Venezuela that'll come up here and play in Major League. Okay, Laura?
Quick fact about the rodeo: when the person who holds the flag, actually at the end they have to cut off their tails and
They have to cut off their tails and what?
horns.
How come?
I think it's just
It's part of their culture.
culture. And also
Interesting.
the
So the person who holds the flags like that. Oh.
and then the person who holds the flag does not say "Ole." The crowd does.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Then they talked about a dance. Brandon,
It was like Zoropo.
Joropo, and the J's in Spanish don't sound like J's. Okay, Joropo, kind of like an H, right? So this is not Joropo, it's Joropo. It's a stomping type of a dance, a couples dance. I'm going to show you a little. Well, yeah, they do that kind of stuff. This girl's got this big, huge dress, and she like flaps it around. You gotta have a big dress. I'll show you here in a second. All right. Here we go. Lively too. See that dress? How big it is?
It's like she's wearing a big ribbon.
She could do bullfighting with that, or whatever that's called.
That's so much different than what we're used to.
There you have that. Okay. Today, well, we'll start with what people do for a living, then we'll eventually get to what the government is like today, too. Do you need a little more? Okay, so moving to today. Hello. 5. Okay, what do most people do for, do you have a question or you want to answer the question? What do most people do for a living? They farm. Most people farm or they work on the ranch. Okay, we talked about some crops they grow, which is indigo, but they also work on the ranch too. Okay, people that are working on the ranch, what do they call those people, those cowboys that are working on the ranches? Lexi? Llaneros, good job. You even pronounced it right, because remember, don't forget to indent here. 2 L's together make the Y sound in Spanish. The Llaneros, which are Venezuelan cowboys, they herd cattle on a lot of the ranches, and they herd the cattle in the Llanos region. That's hence the name Llaneros. Okay? So that's what a lot of the people do. Most people are farming or ranching. Okay? Now, there are few people, and this is what makes the country able to be wealthier. At times it was, and at times it wasn't. But what is it that was found in the early 1900s again? Chayton?
Oil.
Oil was found in the early 1900s. And so that is another industry that people are able to make money in. Okay? They're able to make money in this. And when we come back tomorrow, we'll go from there. So I need you to put your stuff on your desk. Don't go anywhere. Put your newspaper on your desk. Now you're taking your stuff with you, all right? Because you're not coming back. And listen. Sit down and listen here. You get it? Can I have that back? You know I gave you this copy, so you don't have to write anything. Okay. Yep. Okay, so here's the deal. Whoops.